So when it comes to like suicide, as somebody that's had those inclinations in my life, I usually have the instances that I've experienced that have been when I could not show up for life on life's terms. Life as it is doesn't agree with who it is that I've come to describe myself as being. So if I can't exist with life, like something gotta shake. I can't change life. People, places, and things, 3 uncontrollable things. What I do have control over is if I'm here or not. So maybe I'll just pop some pills, or maybe I, jump off a roof, or maybe I'll slip my, like that's the controllability that I have. But when we can't agree, when we don't agree with life, and if we can't come to terms with life on life's terms, then it's cause for suffering. And the only way to bring about cessation of suffering is to figure out what pathway to acceptance that we can find that is specific to our spirit. Like, how can we land at the level of acceptance that we need to be able to allow life to be what it is? Because people gonna be who they are, things gonna be what they are, and places gonna be what they are. The only thing that we can change is ourselves, our perception, how we see it. So it's just like somebody who views life as, oh, this is a damning life. This is a life that sucks. Like everybody is hateful. Everybody doesn't care. And somebody who views life as, oh, I'm supported. And no matter what, I show up and I'm looked after. And I always have whatever it is that I need whenever I need it. Like those people are looking at the same shit. So like learning to turn the cogs within our inner mechanism that allow for us to see life in a way that enables us and empowers us versus one that disempowers us and it makes it debilitating so much so that I got to take my own life.
And if you're just tuning in, this is another episode of Breaking the Machine. I'm your host, AhmadThePoet. And if you can't tell, Spank is not in the studio today. He just had his baby girl, man. Okay. So congratulations to Spank. And so he's taking a week off for those who listen on audio. But he'll be back very soon. But today I have a special guest host in the studio with me today. BryceTheThird, the powerful brother, the good brother is here. How you doing, King?
I'm good, man. I'm feeling great. Always happy to have a conversation where we kind of throw around some concepts and hopefully leave higher than we were when we came.
I wanted to ask you, because today, like I told you before the cameras came on, I want to talk about upliftment. I want to talk about mental health, and I just want to talk about positivity. What was your first step, or a brief synopsis of your mental health journey, from going and really changing the way you look at stuff?
I'm pretty loud and outspoken about it. I'm a person in recovery from substance abuse and alcoholism. My recovery date is 7/27/2013. Went to rehab. What had led me there was just I got to a point in my life where it was like, this is not sustainable. I know a big part of my situation was like my daughter being born. I've been a daddy since I was 16. So my son was like already like 6 or 7, right? But my daughter was born, and when she was born, she had this look in her eye like she required something from me that I knew I didn't have. So it would still be a couple of years before, I would get to the point of desperation where I had to seek a different way of life. But that was the first moment where it's like, oh, this shit I've been doing, this is not gonna work, especially if I have to take care of this and guide this person. It was like I felt like a shell of a man. So when I came home from rehab, it was just like asking myself, what do I want for the first time? Because a big reason I used to numb up was to avoid the things that were going on in my head and in my heart, because they just felt super overwhelming. It's like, it's too much, and y'all don't look like y'all going through this much. So I just want to be like, I just want to be regular, But when I came back, it was like, I was working at a plant, one of these assembly plants, and been working there for a couple of years. I used their employee assistance program to go to rehab. So it was like, you got a job when you come back. I'm like, cool. I came back like, what the fuck have I been doing with my life? Like, this isn't who I am. But then it was like, now begs the question, like, but who am I? When we ask and a lot of times we avoid the question, who are we? Because once the answer comes back, we're no longer ignorant. And now we have an answer that we either honor and work to align with, or feel depression, or feel the squeeze of not moving in alignment with what our spirit is calling for.
And I want to touch on something that you said. You said, I want to be normal. What is normal? You know what I'm saying? Especially
who the fuck knows? Like, who really knows?
I think it's that illusion that causes a lot of us so much stress. You know what I'm saying? Just looking at how somebody else handles their issues. You know, they handle it so well. It's just like, yeah, that's a normal person. Just the way they handle it, because I can't handle it that well. That just means you're not good at pretending that much. It's like, man, I wear mine on my shoulders, man. I wear it, you know what I'm saying? I wear it on my chest. And I feel like when we all come into a better understanding that everybody has their own things, it's just everybody can't wear it as well as other people. You know what I'm saying? And some come out in different ways and some come out at different times. And I really think that's the conversation that needs to take place today, because I told you I wanted to get into something that was in the news. Chelsea Christ, one of the former Miss USA, the one who committed suicide, she wrote an open letter on Allure magazine, and she was talking about turning 30 and just how things were different. She didn't know that turning 30 would be like so lonely. You know, she felt like the time was against her. The ticking of that clock was against her. She was getting older. And I feel like, first of all, I want to say rest in peace to her and condolences to her family and all her loved ones and those who care, and her fans and those who were tuned into her movement. I really think that is the thing that gets a lot of people in today's time. And she said that especially is going against women, you know, that whole time, you know, because when you're in that prime of your life, you feel like that's when you matter the most. And when you're out of it, you feel like you matter the least. And I feel like that's something that a lot of us need to have that conversation about, our worth being in how we look, how we show up, the things that we can do for other people, rather than it being in our very being, you know?
There's a lot there.
It is.
There's a lot there. First, how old are you?
22.
22.
Well, I just turned 23, my bad.
Okay, yeah. No, I'm turning 33 this year. And like, what do you feel about age? Like, what do you feel about time and its role in this experience?
I would say there are some, and just, you know, and I've never been asked this question, so that's a very interesting question. But I feel like there are some who are able to tap into it. You know, I heard Dick Gregory talk about indigo children that are just born with high IQs and very sharp and alert. But he said, and I feel as well, that a lot of those children are dumbed down because it's like, man, act like a child, because that level of awareness is seen as being smart. You know, you're being smart right now. You're being this, you're being that. You're being disrespectful because you're not supposed to be that alert. You're supposed to be under my guidance. You're supposed to let me alert you to what you should and should not know. And those of us who are awoken and alert at such a young age, we face a lot of different issues because we understand that there is a game and a role to be played, and we're not playing the role how other people want us to play it. And I honestly feel like a lot of people dumb themselves down to play that role, whether that's women dumbing themselves down to play the role of the dumb housewife or not even the dumb housewife, or the trophy wife, or to play the wife that stays at home and take care of the kids. And you feel like there's a certain archetype that you have to be a part of. A lot of us dumb ourselves down to be a part of that archetype. I do it all the time. You know what I'm saying? If I hang around some of my homeboys who might not want to have such enlightening conversations, I'll dumb myself down just to be there with you, because I still love you at the end of the day. I still want to communicate, but then it also has to come to a space where, like, man, I went down now. Hey, see, you know, you come up a little bit, or maybe it's not even come up. Maybe you come over a little bit. I went over there, and can you come over here a little bit? You know what I'm saying? And I think that's the part that really hurts us. A lot of times we don't make them come to where we're at. We constantly going to where they're at because that's the base level. That's where everybody else is on that kind of that horizontal plane, you know? So I feel like age is an illusion, but I also feel like a lot of us can't break through it because we're in those social constructs of being in that, you know, that mode.
So I think the first thing breaking the system and like shaking people up, I know is important to you. And what I've come to discover in my life is that, like, people, places, and things, man. The three uncontrollables. Like, I don't have no control over a person. I don't have no control over a place. I don't have no control over a thing. So to wake people up, or even the concept of waking somebody up, I was watching the early Mac episode, and you know, he was like, I'm willing to fight you for truth. But what I've come to discover is like, with 7-8 billion people on the planet, it's 7-8 billion realities. And to be super objective as to what my reality is, and knowing that my reality is my reality, and to think that I can wake somebody up is to assume that I have a monopoly on what's right. And I really don't. Everybody is doing everybody is doing the best that they can with what they've been given. And this is a law that I live by that allows for me to allow people to be who they are. And what I've learned, like as you are a public teacher in a public space, you know, showing up on a daily basis to wake people up, where you think you may be waking people up, people are already woke. People already had that thing within them that you're agitating. If they didn't have that thing, they wouldn't even hear, they wouldn't even see you. Like, you wouldn't be something that they could perceive.
Facts.
So what you're doing is leading by example, being this in a public space and being an example and a reference point of what is possible for somebody. And now people can see that and decide if they want to do that or not. Now they have the resources. So it's just like, you know, the difference between, so you're like, I could dumb myself down. And even that concept assumes that, like, you know, that there's a level to dumb down too. Some people, like, a lot of people aren't dumbing down. That's their fucking reality, because that's all they know. You know, y'all was talking on the show, I forget what episode it was. I think it was the one with Demetrius, and y'all was talking about, you know, like when he went to Cali, you know, when he went to Paris, like, the problems got smaller because the world got bigger. But a lot of people, they just stay on the like the same four corners. They got four corner syndrome, and they grow to like 70, 80 years old, and their experience just continues to be an echo chamber, and this is what's reflected to them, and that's their life. You know, so once you continue to grow, you continue to go, people are watching you, you continue to grow and develop. Now you're a reference point. And it's like, okay, now I don't have the excuse of being ignorant, because I see him. He look like me. He my age. He come from where I come from, and he doing this. So now I have a reference point. You see what I'm saying? So the work is working on ourselves in public, working on ourselves out loud, and then being a reflection of somebody else just by being who it is that we are.
No, I think that's the number one thing, is especially what you're saying, leading by example. Because I think that was the number one thing that made me want to get into the podcast space, because I watched podcasts when I was in high school, and just hearing people just not tell other people what was right, but just tell them what they was going through. And it's like, yeah, that's me. That's me right there. I relate to that. Yeah. And I think that's the biggest thing, just like with this podcast, this community that we trying to build.
Not trying to.
The community that we building is really just about, this is what I'm going through. Can anybody relate to this? You know, is any of these, I don't, you know, how many ever followers or subscribers that we have, can any of those realities relate to this reality that I'm going through right now? You said there's over 6 or 8 billion realities going on. Can somebody step into can you relate to this reality that I'm experiencing right now? Yes, I relate to that. I am on that plane as well. Okay, you're on this plane. Okay, how are you experiencing this? How are you experiencing it? How are you navigating this? And because somebody had to step into my reality to help me be like, yeah, I've been on this. I've been here before. You know, it's kind of like into the Spideyverse, when he goes in there and there's all these other multiple universes of Spider-Mans, and it's just like, yeah, that happened in my storyline, but it happened like this. You know, instead of wearing a red cape, the dude was kind of wearing a blue cape. Okay, then what did you do to do? And that's kind of what I see this being. It's really like, because my homeboy Jacob, he helped me like that to get through my anxiety. I was like, this is what I'm experiencing. I don't know what this is. This is my reality. He like, oh, so okay, you throwing up all the time. You really anxious about things. You don't like going to public space. Okay, well, I've dealt with that. This was my reality. Try this. And I'm like, that was it. Yeah. I went to Inception and talked to David, and it was the same thing. I was just like, man, this is my reality. And I love that you said that. It's so many realities happening at the same time. And it's never the same colored cape. But sometimes that same storyline, sometimes you can do that same move and get the bad guy, you know, but it's completely different realities. And I completely relate to that, man. And I think that's a powerful concept, man. But I wanted to ask you about positivity. You know, you said something, you made a post, I think it was either today or yesterday, and you were talking about just showing up with positivity for putting out content. And I know that's something that I deal with as well. It's like when you're constantly putting up a positive energy, projecting that positive energy out to the world, people think you're kind of being fake because you're not expressing the negative side. And it's just like, dang, do you need me to be negative for you to feel positive? And that's a whole concept in itself, because we talked about that in the David episode. Like in some relationship, people want you to get aggressive so they know that you love them and all that other stuff. But how do you deal with that? You know, understanding that negativity is going to come, but you have to look at it through a positive, you know, lens. Or maybe you don't have to look through a positive lens.
So like my biggest question to anybody who that may be their predicament is like, what feels right to you? Because that's what's authentic. Like what feels right to you? Like what feels appropriate? What feels aligned? Like, because that's what's gonna come off as authentic, because it is authentic. Like, do that. If you feel like you're an overly positive guy, like, and you don't really want to feed into negativity, then do that. But if you feel like I'm a negative guy and like that's how you get off and that's how you express, like you might have to get that off. And the reason I say I put the air quotes in is because negativity and positivity, and this might just be like where I'm at in life right now, like spiritually, I'm discovering the importance of polarity. And I used to trip off of duality. I didn't believe in duality for a long time, because like I had friends that would be like, oh yeah, I got some light, but then I got some dark in me too. And I do the dark shit because it balances out the light shit. And it's like, nah, bro, that's really like an excuse to be ratchet for real. Like, you know, and like you're aware. So like you're actively doing things that you know are dark, right? But like polarity allows for me to be going through some dark shit and knowing that this is the fucking same thing. It's the same exact thing as the light. Like polarity, if this exists, then this has to exist. So if I'm going through a dark time, then there has to be a light time within there. And matter of fact, this is the light, you know? So you think about like Frankie Beverly and Mays, Joy and Pain. Joy and pain, are like sunshine and rain. And it's one of the verses, you know, sun could be laughter, sun could be pain, but they're both one and the same. Like they're both the fucking same thing. And I've noticed like in moments of like intense joy or like intense like delight, like there's this thing inside of there that I have to like practice in my own personal life, investigating that like, because when things are super joyful, like it's like I might lose this. You know, there's a darkness to it, because it's like, damn, like I want to hold this forever. Like that keeps me from being present if I'm not aware of it. And then when it's dark, you know, the same thing goes on too, where it's like, this is dark, but sometimes we can feel like it's gonna last forever and we stuck in here. But in all actuality, like the only thing I've ever been able to hang my hat on is impermanence. So like the dark is not gonna last. And as a matter of fact, like this dark is required to see the light. Like the polarity allows for the awareness of either one. Like I couldn't see the light if I didn't experience the dark. And I couldn't experience the dark if there wasn't for the light. You know, if somebody didn't cut the lights off. Like the dark couldn't exist if I wasn't aware of the light. You know, so I think I got lost. I forgot the question.
No, that was powerful. The question was just basically about
positivity.
Positivity. But how do you see like constantly showing up about positivity and not letting people be like, hey man, you being fake because you constantly looking at it with a positive outlook? You know what I'm saying?
So the biggest thing is like, you know, once again, you know, what feels aligned with you, but also like what does intentions help me a lot? Intentions help me a lot. And that's what's helping me in my business. That's what's helping me in my creativity. I'm a newly published author. I got an album coming out this year. Like it's a lot of things that like I need me for. And if I don't have intention, then your intention is going to rub off on me. You know, if I don't have the ability to set the boundaries between your intentions and my intentions, which is inherent when I don't have any intentions and I'm just floating, and then I'm up for grabs for your intentions for me. It's like, oh, bro, I want you to be more negative. I want you to be more positive. I want you to be more real. I want you to blow up. You know, it's like, well, what the fuck is any of this shit? Like, these are so broad of concepts. Like, your perception plays such a role into these things that for you to say you should have blown up, like, what do blown up even mean? You know, I've been semi-viral on TikTok. You know, I've been on billboards throughout the city and been receiving shutoff notices at the same time. Like, I've had these experiences where it's like, oh, so what I once thought was blowing up, like, this shit ain't blowing up. Like, what is important to me? And then that's when you set the intentions. Like, okay, so I want to be a well-respected creator. I want to be empowered financially and to be able to empower others financially. Now I have these tangible things that I intend that allow for me to, like, actually notate that I hit this thing. You know, so now it's like, okay, this is what determines success for me. So, like, people saying you should be more positive, you should be more negative. Like, there's, like, what people say have less of an impact on me unless what people say are critiques that align with my alignment with my intentions. If that makes sense.
How long? Well, was it ever a time where you were in a space to push the way you were moving on other people? You know, yeah.
I mean, so what do you mean, like, like I agreed with it?
No, because I feel like you. Well, I could be wrong, but I feel like you have a stance of just like you said, like you don't believe in the negativity and the positivity. You look at it through a different lens, and oftentimes I'm like, dang, that was such a hard space for me to get into. I wonder, did other people have that phase where they was like trying to structure the way other people looked at things, like, man, you got to do this so you can get here and blah, blah, blah. Because I went through that phase, and usually when I have guests on, I ask them that because I feel like a lot of us, when we're on this whole movement of changing the way that we think, we try to put that on other people as well.
Ahmad, you are a prolific teacher. And for you to be, you know, turning 23 or just turned 23, like, you have the ability to affect so many people. And I don't even know how I came across you. Like, I found you somewhere on Instagram. Something came to me. I was like, dog is prolific. And like, having the best teachers continuously learn. Like, if somebody arrives, like, I've arrived, I'm the teacher, this is what I do. Like, you never want a teacher that is done learning. You never want a mentor who doesn't have a mentor. You know, you don't never want to tap into somebody who is done. Like, so when you say, like, it was hard for me to arrive there. Like, shit, this is a practice, bro. Like, on a daily basis, like, I'm working to build process within myself that allows for me to be objective and not judge, and to have compassion and understanding. Like, it's a practice to show up this way. And when I look back, I mean, you know, once I first started, like, really, like, tapping into this way of life and tapping into teaching and tapping into, like, empowering others. Like, when I first was learning, like, when I first developed a relationship with a higher power that wasn't the one that, like, the people that I grew up with and the culture that I grew up with tried to give me. Like, I'm trying to push this shit on everybody. Like, oh, don't you know? Like, oh, what you mean you don't believe in God? What is up? Like, I'm, you know, because I'm excited, you know, and I had to have the experience of, like, trying to push what it is that I'm excited about on other people, and other people rejecting it because they're not in that space. Maybe that'll never be for them. Maybe that's not the language that they need to hear to resonate with what it is that's resonated with me, for me to understand, like, oh, like, there's a way to convey truth in a way that allows you to pick it up if you choose to, but doesn't force you to if it's not for you. And then, you know, that has led me to, like, how we was talking about earlier, like, living and growing. For me, like, I just live and grow in public. You know, and I do it in a public space, which allows me to be a muse, which allows for me to be a reference point for people who may not have had that reference point. Because I know me, I ain't never have a reference point like me. I didn't have somebody who came from Inkster like I came from Inkster and was talking about the shit that I'm talking about. You know, I don't know any authors that's gonna take it as far as I'm gonna take it. I don't know people that are a podcaster and all of this shit started with rap and he's still like a good ass rapper. Like I didn't know anybody like me. So I know it's important for me to show up, and it's important for me to be outspoken, and it's important for me to do this thing out loud because of the potential to empower others. But I can't, like, a potential and an actuality are two different things. So it's like planting seeds. Like as a teacher, like the adage of planting seeds. Like, if I plant a seed and I sit there and I watch the seed grow, whether the seed grows or not, I'll determine my success off of the seed growing. There's so many elements that go into a seed growing, like its own biology, its own ability to soak in the sun and the water. Like, you know, and if I determine my ability by this seed growing, then, you know, I will see myself as a failure if this seed doesn't grow. So what I've had to do is, like, plus that's unfair to the fucking seed because now the seed's success is my success. And when the seed doesn't succeed, it's like you didn't do what I told you to do. You should, and that's the least way that somebody is going to be receptive to any type of teaching. So like my process has become planting the seeds. Everywhere I go, I plant seeds. I plant seeds. I plant seeds. I plant seeds. Then I hope by at the end of my life, I'll turn around and maybe some trees grew.
Man, that's powerful as hell, man. The reason I say that is because I hope that don't go over people's head, man. I think the seeds a lot of times is obviously it's the work, and at least that's for me. It is the work, and man, you put out an episode, it don't do the numbers that you want. You drop a merch drop, it don't do the numbers that you do this, it don't do that. It's just like, dang. But I put it out there though. And even the episodes that do 20 views now, they might do 200,000 when the seeds have piled up and you got a whole tree. They want to go back to the first tree and see the first one you planted. And that's when it goes tall to the ceiling. And that's what I had to understand. I was just like, man, I put it out because I would put things out and then I would take it off. Put it out, take it. If it didn't do the numbers, if the seed didn't grow like I needed it to grow. Now I put it out there, whatever. You'll come back. Hopefully one day you'll come back to this and check out what happened there. But it's there. It was real. And we get so caught up in how it grows than what we put in it. Like, bro, that was real what I said. People just didn't see it. Like you was talking shadow ban and all that stuff. They just didn't see it. It was real. And somebody's going to connect with that. I'm putting it out there and I'm leaving it there. You know what I'm saying? That was probably like, that's me, bro. That's me. Like, man, just looking at how the things grow, man. And I think that's something that a lot of us get caught up into, man. But if you're really doing genuine work, and it's just like what you said, the intention. What did you intend to do? Did you really want to impact people, or did you want to make 10,000 from this one video that you posted on YouTube? It's like, man, if the intention was to impact people, you did that. You know what I'm saying? Even if it was one view, you did that, man. Just let it go. You know what I'm saying? Let it grow. So
yeah, and work always work. And so I don't know how long you've been creating. How long have you been creating?
7 years.
Okay, so you have to have known through experience because you're still here that work always works. If it's not working for you, it's working on you. You know, so that thing that we might have thought that we wanted this thing to do, like what it did was it gave us feedback because we did it in public and we saw the result of what it was that we did with all the variables that we did it with. So now we can alter, we can pivot, and we can move forward to get closer to the accomplishment of our intentions. So if it's not working for you, it's working on you. And as it works on you, it'll continue to work for you because you'll be the person that'll work for. Does that make sense?
Man. Yes, that's facts, man. That's facts. I love it. I wanted to ask you, what's your thoughts on community? You know, you building community, I'm building a community. What do you think that's important for just to be able to maintain that cycle of I don't even want to say positivity because you like you said it's polarity, but that good energy, you know, because when we had David on, he talked about community trauma, and I had never heard of community trauma until he brought it up. And, you know, having that sense of community can be traumatic because you feel like you have to live up to this community standards. And if you're not a part of this community, you lose your identity. But I feel like community is a powerful thing. What do you think about community and the importance of that to maintain?
Well, first off, shout out David. I think we need people like that. We need workers like that in the community that dig deep into that type of work that allow for us to understand like how we got here. It's kind of like the fish in the water, talking to the other fish, how's the water? And then the fish like, what water? Like there's so much like trauma. There's so much intergenerational trauma. There's so much like my ancestor could have experienced anxiety, and because of how we got in this country, of course, my ancestor experienced anxiety. And because of that, biologically, I can suffer from that exact anxiety. And it's like, I had nothing to do with that. You know what I'm saying? But because it's in my genes, like I feel it. Like, so there's so many things that, like the work that David is digging into it, like is important for it. Me and my work, I tend to lean more towards creating autonomy in people and people having their own ability, like, and empowering people. So once they go through David and they see like, okay, this is the water, like, oh shit, now what do I do? Like, am I a slave to this? Because you got a lot of people who will just continue to point to that, like, oh, it's the system, or oh, it's the fact that slavery happened, or oh, it's this and this and this, and this is why I'm behind. It's like, yeah, that's why you started out behind.
It's also why
if you stay behind, like, that's on you. Like, that's on you. So when it comes to even community, like, I'm a community builder, but I think like this community already existed, and I'm just creating a space for people to come and feel expressed. I'm creating a space where, you know, people could be like, oh yeah, I'll be on this all the time, but I'll be at the crib. And what caught my attention is what bleeds, because you know, if it bleeds, it leads. Like as soon as we came in, you were talking about, you know, the woman that jumped off, and it's like, bro, like I do not tap in, because I'm not tapped in. It was leading. I'm the leading edge. I'm on the cutting edge, you know. And so and I have to stay that way, because I have to continue to create these environments where people can come and it's like, oh, this is not that. Like, this is me and my fullest expression. Like, this is where I belong, you know. So it's just important for me to continue to show up compassionate and understanding, and allow people a space that they can come and feel expressed. And like learning how to do that, like everything is marketing. So learning how to tell the story and display the message in a way that's attractive to you. And it puts me in the spaces where these people already exist, and just, you know, showing them that, oh, here goes a space that you can come and feel expressed.
So when did you get into that space of removal from the negativity? Because I think about that all the time with actors, especially a lot of big actors. They don't have social media, at least not to our perception. You know, they might have backup accounts or whatever. Where did you get into a space of that? Because that's one of the biggest things that, because I used to get into spaces like I said, I've been doing this for 17 years, this whole social media management thing, and just putting out content. And I would get into spaces like, man, I need to take a break. But then I would also think like, dang, if I take one day off, it feels like you missed a week of news. Like a week of, how do you get into a space where you just don't like even care about or not like controlled by that desire to know what's going on?
Once again, we curate our experience.
Yes.
And so even like what's going on is personal to you. So for me, like I feel like I'm tapped, like there's certain things I'm always be tapped into. So like even if I don't want to, like I'm kind of always gonna know what's going on with Kanye, just because like I've always been a student of hip hop. So like hip hop news is always like at the forefront. Like I'm always gonna see that. But very early on, back in like 2013, I'm like, cut the news off. You know, I see how it affect my people. My grandparents sit up in the crib, and all they did was watch the news all day. And every time I talk to them, even though they would say that I stand for this, all they would be talking about is this. It's like, well, that's because you're being programmed. Like you're continuously fed these messages. And I think what's important here, again, is I'm always come back to intention. Like, what do I intend? And how does what I'm doing play into my intentions? So if I want to be a well-respected creator, like I can't be super focused on what somebody else is creating, because that's taken away from me creating, right? So like the creation of the news, the creation of rhetoric, the creation of like politics and stuff like that. And at the end of the day, like I don't have a monopoly on what's right. Like you might be somebody who can go and protest. Like I couldn't protest because I'm gonna throw a brick. Like that's how emotional I am. So the way that I make change is in the studio. Like the way that I make change is by creating podcasts. The way that I make change is by writing books. The way that I make change is by creating music. The way that I make change is creating space for people to come and consume and share all these things. And that's how I make change. Media is the number one way to affect change in a culture. If you want to make somebody's, and I think you talked about this on a couple of episodes, I've seen some clips on Instagram where it's like, you know, we see these videos, these movies, and it's like, this is how black people are depicted, you know, or even you was talking with Dimitri, it's like, you know, the killings, like, you know, this is how we see in our black bodies continuously, so we're being desensitized to us being these ways. So it's like getting intentional about how it is that we curate our intake. Like, you are what you eat. You know, you digest more than just food. You know, you digest more than just food. So what are you doing? Are you waking up and the first thing you do in the morning is go on social media and be pulled in this direction and that direction? Like, and once again, going back to like, what feels right to you? And does that feel right? Does that feel right? Or are you feeling crazy? Cause it's like Early Mac was talking about with the Magneto thing. Like you got everybody views and opinion. Social media is important because it puts the power of the most powerful thing, which is media, in your hands. But it's also, you know, you put a nuclear bomb in everybody's hand, you know, not everybody gonna use it the right way. So I'm just pulled to use it in a way that I would need to consume it to be empowered, if that makes sense.
It's crazy that you say that about media, because I'm thinking like, That's a real thing. That's a real thing. That's
really real.
Yeah, like to have the access to millions of people, billions of people, at the palm of your hands, and then to use it the wrong way.
Can I say this real quick?
Absolutely.
So, like, when we talk about media, like, think about it, because I didn't even expound on this concept, but think about it, like, media. So I can sit here and sit on a podium all day and just talk to you, right? Or I can show you a movie, or I can show you a documentary, or I can show you commercials, or I can show you billboards, or I can show you all these things. Like, think about like the movie Birth of a Nation. This is a fucking movie, but it depicted black people in such a savage way that when the president of the United States at that time showed it at the White House, people are like, oh shit, like these people are savages. These people are savages, and this is co-signed by my president of the United States of America, right? Like, think about, like, Black Lives Matter movement. Like, police brutality has been happening. Like, you talk about shoebox lunch and the stuff that Rafa Wright is doing and Asa is doing. And, like, you talk about the shoebox lunch. When my family from down south, we used to go down south, and we would not stop at no restaurants. And this is in the 90s. We taking chicken with us. We eating chicken the whole time because we not stopping at no restaurants in the South. The South is weird, right? But because of the media would have you see like all of these like things that have been already in our culture and putting it at the forefront. So now all the cultures see it. So police brutality had been happening, but social media allowed for us to put these videos on social media. So now everybody's seeing it. And just like Martin Luther King at Selma, when they went to the bridge, like they had been getting their ass beat for years and being nonviolent, but getting your ass beat and being nonviolent on camera nationally for everybody to see. It's like, oh, we got to do something about this. So Black Lives Matter was birthed because of media. If you think about like the vegan movement, birthed because of movies. Like, I can't think of any movies right now, but like those documentaries, that's like, damn, like, what if I've been eating Food Incorporated, Super Size Me? Like, these things would come out, and it's like, damn, like, McDonald's is trash. Like, we knew that because I'm paying $1 for like 12 food items, right? But now this documentary hits me emotionally. Just like music hits you emotionally. The things that touch our heartstrings and pull our heartstrings and entice us to act, like that's what media does. You watch a good ass movie, it entices you to act, and it affects your belief sets, and that's what moves culture. So I can sit up and talk all day. I could be the president of the United States all day, but it isn't until I put that documentary on, until I tap into that podcast, until I give Joe Rogan, $6 or $7 million to be on Spotify, and everybody's listening to him. And this is news, and this is where I get my news from, because the media affects culture.
Man, we gotta. Man, I'm gonna get to that Joe Rogan on another time, man, because he really heavy in the news right now. I've been looking at it, and I got my opinions on it, man. But desensitizing the way we look at things, man. I wanted to touch on something, black women, and just I see a lot of stuff in the news about missing black girls, missing black women, all type of stuff, and I see it on Facebook a lot. I see it on major news networks a lot. What is the lack of? I don't know. See, because I don't want to demonize nobody, but I feel like it's a lack of concern for what goes on for the black woman in present today's society, especially amongst black men. And I don't know if it's our lack of, it's their independence, so we feel like we don't have a say, or maybe it's something else. How do we get back into that sense of feeling?
Like specifically in the context of black women?
Absolutely, yeah.
So the biggest, so with women and like, so I got a lot of women friends.
Yeah.
And this is a relatively new development within like the past 6 or 7 years, when I've been able to kind of explore that a little bit more and like just really have open conversations with women. And just, I think the biggest thing we could do is, if we're seeking to understand black women or a culture that we don't belong to in general, 4 words: shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up and listen.
I was just about to say, where the 5th at? I'm like, listen, gotta come here. So I hear the shut the fuck up part, but where to listen at? It got okay.
Shut the fuck up and listen, because a lot of times we're like, well, what do you need? And then people will tell us what they need, and it's like, well, I don't understand like why you need this, because I mean, if you think of like, bro, like they literally just told you what they needed. So can you get past your cognitive biases Can you have cognitive diffusion long enough to pull out and be objective and listen and be aware that this person is literally giving you the answer to what you've asked for? Because I think that'd be the biggest thing. How can we this? How can we that? And that's like when you get to politics, that's why I don't get wrapped into politics. Because like, how can we this and that and this and that? And then you have like 50 fucking people all chiming in on how we can do it, except for the fucking person, like the lowest ring on the voice ladder is the person that we're talking about. Like, how can we black rights and whoop whoop, and now we having these panels about using the word nigga, and it's like 35 white people on there talking about how the word nigga is offensive and shouldn't be used at all. It's like, listen to the nigga that's saying like, this is what we need, this is where we come from, this is why we use the word. You shouldn't use it, you shouldn't want to use it in the story. Well, no, I think that. Okay, you're not listening. You're not listening, so you really must not want the answer to this question that you asked. So it's like, how can we be there for black women? Let's start with shutting the fuck up and listening to what they need. And then when they tell us what it is that they need, like, let's show up. There's so many things with having women friends that like I was pointed to in my life. So like I just say some random shit like, or like maybe invite somebody down or like, or just talk about like my experience. And I was, down there, I was downtown at like, 10 p.m. Woo, woo. I can't do that. What you mean you can't do that? Like meet me down there at like 11 p.m. Woo, woo. Not by myself. Like what do you mean? I would never go anywhere as a woman like by myself at this time of night. It's like, why not? Because I'm not protected. I don't feel safe. That's not some shit that I would do. I don't feel comfortable. And it's like, damn, I'm floating all around the country. Like I was talk about like, oh, I went to Montreal on my 30th birthday. I didn't know nobody. I just drove and just went and met somebody from Instagram, my dog from Instagram. And then we didn't get cool till I got there. But like, he had tatted me up in Chicago, but we ain't really know each other. Like I just be going on adventures by myself. And, a lot of my women friends, I don't feel comfortable doing that. And it's like, oh shit, there's a whole experience that you feel that you cannot have because of who it is that you are. And being a black man, and having that experience is like, oh, some things are just different for me because of the shade of my skin. Like it would behoove me to shut the fuck up and listen to somebody else's experience because I wish that somebody would have listened to my experience of how I've had a different experience because of the color of my skin.
How do we do that for the children?
Oh man. So fatherhood, I'm gonna write a parenting book, bro. I'm gonna write a parenting book and it's gonna be like 3 pages. Like keep showing up. Your kids are not yours. They came through you, and continue to tap into the process of their unfolding. A lot of times, like we'll look at kids and, the whole thing, like the worst thing, I've talked to the kids down at the Spectrum at the Juvenile Detention Center in Highland Park and the Substance Abuse Pod and just going there and kick it with them. And really, they only fuck with me out of all the people that went in there and talked to them because everybody else are coming in with this energy like, oh, this is what you need. And I've been there and la, la, la. Like the worst thing you could have said to me as a 14-year-old is I've been where you been. Like, bro, we could have came up on the same block, 4 houses down from each other and still have had a different experience because we're different people. So I will say like I've been through something similar, but I've never been Ahmad. I'll say that I've had a similar experience, but I've never been you. And even just the recognition of that, like will open the kid up. We're like, okay, well he's actually fucking listening. Because when it's like I know what you're going through, it's like now you've already started without your ear. You started with your mouth. So what do the kids need? Like, listen to what it is that they need. And I really, like, if there's a house party going on, like, I'm with the kids for real. Because they going to tell it how it is. They going to be open and honest. And they don't have those things that we grow onto us as we have more experience. They have those things. They don't have too many of those things, so it's just imagination and just fucking like free energy. And it's just like, yes, yes, yes. And I'll take that and then talk to the adults and translate that to the adults in a way that they can understand. But it's just like kids really have more the answers than I think than the adults do. I think one of the most inspiring kid relationship experiences that I've had is when I've been out there feeding the homeless a few times. We did the Enjoy Detroit Memorial Day barbecue, and they Enjoy Detroit. I have like all type of giveaways and food and all type of stuff like that. And I'm just a guy who just thinks. Like I'm always like I got a software program. All my experiences, like I'm downloading new software and I'm continuously upgrading. So there I'm thinking and I'm looking at these homeless people and it's like that's always been a meditation for me. Like how did you get to where you're at? Like what choices did you have to make to be in this position that you are in right now? But then like seeing the kids of those homeless people who didn't have no choice, Like they were just born into this. And seeing the fucking joy on their face, the happiness that they're experiencing just running around, because they don't know about none of this shit. They just hear it and just happy. There's music, there's barbecue. Like I'm just having a good ass time. They don't know the shit that their parents know because they didn't experience that yet. You know, so it's just like, I don't know, kids are an interesting case study, and I think we should pay more attention to them. I
feel like that's spot on. In this public school, that really does it to them, you know? They don't realize that these different things is happening until you go to public school, or you go in, or you're around other people who aren't sensitive to your experience, you know? Because I didn't seen it,
Yeah, but even with that, man, and like I empower my kids, like y'all, like I'll tell my kids quick if I don't know some shit, I don't know some shit. Like we'll figure it out together, because we can blame these systems that are set up for our disempowerment, or we can take responsibility for how we're empowered and become aware of the systems that are taking place so that we can move accordingly. You know, so like think about school. Like there was a time where science books had like black people in them, and they were biologically proven in these science books to be less of a human than a white person is. Like these are the teachings that used to be taught us. Like we don't talk about Marcus Garvey and no shit like that in school right now. You know, like some of the stuff my kid would come home and tell me like they don't discuss, or she doesn't know. Like then that's on me to kind of like pick up the slack. I think school is important in the way that it allows you to build your vocabulary. It allows you to see all different type of views and opinions from all the kids that you go to school with. And please learn your arithmetic. Like learn your arithmetic. You're always gonna need basic like middle school math. But you know, yeah, I think that's. And I got controversial opinions, I guess, around like institutionalized education. I don't necessarily see the importance of like collegiate education. Like, why am I going to a college to learn entrepreneurship from a college professor, bro? You teach me how to be a college professor. Yeah, like you can't teach me entrepreneurship. You're literally with a job, you know, as a college professor. I'm gonna get under the person who's making, you know, 6 figures a month, having 6-figure days, so he can show me exactly how he did it, and that's how I kind of just learned for real.
Man, and I really think that's, man, I don't know if it's controversial. It's just real, man. Like I done been through it and went to college, everything, man. And it ain't for everybody. And to be honest, I honestly think that people see these systems in place. They see that it's wrong. They see they robbing the people. You know, especially black people. We were denied education for so many years now. They make us pay for it. Like this is crazy to even think about. Nobody wants to speak out. You do it in European nations. The kids, they got the signs and stuff. We not for this hiring of the tuition. They shut it down. They don't want to pay all that extra money. They don't want to, but we just sit back, let them do it all to us. You know what I'm saying? Because this is the land of the facade. Like if you say that the pressure is too hot, you know what I'm saying, the heat is too hot in here, that means you can't stand the heat. And everybody want to think that they can stand the heat, or, you know, that they, you know, this is the environment for them. When everybody really going through it, if we all came together and just like, yeah, man, this stuff is crazy. You know, I'm not the richest. Everybody going through different things in life. Like everybody just tries to put on this facade that everybody can pay college the same, or college is the same. Everybody got hundreds of thousands of dollars in loans. And this is not everybody, but a lot of people. And if we just got real about it, I feel like we make change. But we just want to put on this face and this facade about it. But I also want to ask you about guiding to your purpose. I don't even, besides children, because it's a lot of people my age that I know personally that haven't found what they're supposed to do in life. You know what I'm saying? And I know it's no like one formula for finding your purpose. But how do you kind of, what advice would you give somebody that's trying to find their purpose?
Be easy. Be easy on yourself. Have compassion for your process. Show up for yourself, but be easy about it. I think like, so there's this thing that, and I think we touched on this earlier in a conversation where we were talking about normal. And I think normal doesn't exist. Just like I think normal could be comparable to perfect. It's like this ideal that we feel like somebody else like has achieved, and that we try to hold ourselves to. So a lot of times when it comes to purpose, and purpose is the fucking craziest thing, where it's like, oh, it looks like everybody else knows what it is that they doing, so I'm lacking, and so now I got to figure out what I'm doing, and I got to just know because this ain't it, you know. And then what that does is it forces us to get into this mode of scarcity. Like, I have to hurry up and figure it out. And that's not a viable space to figure it out. Because now you're gonna come up with all type of weird shit. But having compassion and understanding for your process and reminding yourself, oh, this is a process. This is exactly where I'm supposed to be. If I'm not where it is that I want to be, like, that's a beautiful thing, because now I have the contrast. Like, contrast is important too. The things that I don't want is important to point me closer to the things that I do want. So to have this experience is perfect. I'm having the experience of what it is that I don't want so I can get closer to what it is that I do want. I'm completely whole. I think there's this thing where it's like spiritually. So now we dipping into spirituality because we're creators. So there's business, but then we got to mix the spirituality in it, because I need to have the capacity to show up on a daily basis over and over and over again, over and over and over again, over and over and over again, and learn these lessons and translate the lessons as something that's empowering. So spiritually, like, allowing myself to have this experience of growing and developing without holding to the edge of my seat. Like, oh, it's almost here. It's almost here. Like, I'm almost perfect. I'm almost perfect. Like, realizing, like, no, I'm perfect right now. Like, I'm completely whole right now. Like, there's nothing that will ever happen that will complete me. There is nothing that has happened that has made me more complete. I've been complete this whole time. It just, like, takes this pressure off of my shoulders. Like, oh, okay, well, this is the perfect version of me. So what else would I like to create? I'm an intentional creator. So what else would I like to create? Okay, I want $100,000 this year. Have I done it yet? I haven't. Does that make me any less whole? No, I'm whole. Well, what are the tangible steps that we could take to make $100,000 a year a viable option? And then we proceed to make the fucking mistakes, because if I knew how to do it, I would have been did it. Like, if I had the equipment to do it, it would already be done. So now I have to move forward. I have to borrow other people's knowledge. I have to buy my own wisdom by making some mistakes and bumping my head to get me to the point to where I can make $100,000 this year. And it's just a process. So to have compassion and understanding for my process as I move forward is to almost like support me and comfort me in my endeavors, because nobody else is going to do it for us. A lot of times we move forward and we look for the support first. It's like, bro, people don't believe in what they can't see. Only you can see your ambitions and your aspirations. So you got to dig into it, you know. And it's this thing, I made this post, I haven't posted it yet, but like, especially in Detroit, like in general with success, but especially in Detroit, there's this thing where it's like this stamp thing, and it's like, we're looking for who stamped you. Like, I'm gonna fuck with you because what's the name stamped you, and yeah, so I'm gonna fuck with you. And then as creators coming up, like, we're looking for that stamp. So like, we're thirsty for somebody's stamp, like that gatekeeper stamp, or somebody to stamp us so that everybody will fuck with us. But at the end of the day, the only person that could ever stamp you is you. Like, the only person who could ever stamp you is you. You got to be your first supporter. You got to show up for yourself and generate that energy, because people don't believe in what they can't see. Energy doesn't move unless we get it to move. I hope that answers the question.
No, that was powerful, man. When you said in today's society, normal is perfect, bro, that's crazy, man, because that's real as hell. I never thought about that. Normal is perfect in today's society. Like, I was really just like thinking about that, like, dang, I never even thought about it. Like, that's real. People's desire to be normal in their head makes it, I got to be perfect. You know, it's crazy. Man, I could have a whole podcast just on that. Like, that's real, man.
Yeah.
But I wanted to ask you, because we talking about content creation and constantly showing up. I don't want to say what's the hardest part of the journey, but what's the part of the journey that requires the most focus and energy? Because I think for me, it is this showing up constantly, and I think it's people's disregard for your humanity, you know, because they're so enthralled with the product. You know what I'm saying? They're like, okay, you know, is the product done on this fight? It's like, oh man, like, I just went through this, and then last week I went through that, and then this is like, but it's the product. And then you got to get in the mindset of, okay, I understand that. You know what I'm saying? I'm just a vessel for the product at this point. You know what I'm saying? They're not really concerned with the vessel. It's more about the product at this point. And you go through dark periods of time where it's just like, hey man, like, my opinions don't matter at this point. You know what I'm saying? All these different things don't seem to matter at this point. It's about to work. It's about to work.
I think, like, when you talk about, like, martial arts, which I don't participate in. I did jujitsu for a second, but it's like there's certain stances. There's certain stances that we get in that allow for us to take on whatever's coming. And we could have the stance that focuses entirely on like what people require from us and what people need. Now, all of these things that we could never actually conceive because I'm not people, you know. So even when you say something, you might say something to hurt me that you don't even believe in, but you have said it because of the things that are going on internally. And for me to try to figure out why it is that you said what you said, or why it is that this is so important to you, or why it is that you disagree with what it is that I've said, like it's for me to dig into a rabbit hole that exerts way too much energy from me, where I can use that energy to create some of the cool shit that I've created. But I think I would definitely like, and so I definitely have had that experience. So I got this book that came out, the handbook. I brought you a copy. And
you,
like
brother.
that book, I gave it to my papa, my grandfather. And shortly after giving it to him, he called me the next day. He was like, so when you gonna write your next book? I'm like, nigga, like I ain't even put this one out yet, you know? And it's just like I only know like how much effort went into creating that. I only know like how much energy I'm spending into creating these products and spaces and environments for people to feel expressed and empowered. So I can't blame anybody else. I can't even put a lot of stake in even the closest people to me what it is that they believe. Because you think about like the closest people to you, there's been a lot of like when I was leaving the plant, you know, the Great Migration, people like blacks coming up from down south to up north for the assembly plants. Henry Ford was like, I'm gonna pay y'all $5. I don't care what color you is. So like generationally, you know, you go to my grandfather and tell him I'm leaving Ford. It's like, why the fuck would you do that? Like you hit the lottery. Like because where he come from, like that was, I'm literally getting paid as much as the white people. Where over here I'm struggling. You see what I'm saying? So you look at the plant culture now, where it's like when people get a plant job, it's like, oh, I've made it. That's residual from when it really meant that, but it don't mean that no more, you know. So like sometimes the closest one to us will give us misguidance to our personal journey, confusing concern with care. I don't need you to be concerned for me right now. I need you to care for me, and let me show you how to care for me. You know. So it's just I would agree with you where the hardest part for me, not the hardest part, but the most energy consuming aspect of like being a teacher, being a content creator, being a musician, being a space creator is like the showing up for myself continuously. You know, showing up and continuing to create, continuing to put it out there, because it takes a vulnerability to like put something out in the world. You know, but it's necessary for us to be entrepreneurs. It's necessary for us to do this in public, because I've seen way too many artists, talented artists, go by the wayside because they didn't put it out because they were scared of the feedback that they would get. And when as artist creators, we're just creating an echo chamber, like we end up doing this weird shit where it's like it's just us and our thoughts. Like we need to put it out. We need to make it public. We need to do it ugly because it needs to get done. And we need to get the feedback from the people to see what it is. Okay, this is what they appreciate. This is what they don't. This is what missed them. Oh, this is who I'm really talking to. Like, I wasn't even talking to y'all. Like, I'm talking to y'all. Y'all showed up and it's like, oh, this is what we need. Oh, okay. And then learning those lessons. So being in a stance that's more lesson oriented than in a stance where, fuck, I put this YouTube video up and it only got 5 views right now and I'm a failure. Being in a stance where it's like, this thing that's in front of me, this thing is all of my success. Like going from that stance to the stance where it's like, oh, this is the whole process. This is the whole practice. The bigger picture is I'm putting myself out there continuously. And whatever's supposed to work, if it's not working for me, it's working on me. You know, so if I can't tangibly see it right now, then I can take solace in the fact that this is working on me. And eventually it's going to work for me. And as it's working on me, I can get more clear about what it looks like for it to work for me. Because maybe sometimes I don't even know what it means for this to work for me. And like when I was talking about like going semi-viral on TikTok, like I did this TikTok video and finally something went crazy, right? But I didn't have the process set up for it to take advantage of it. Like you had all these people in the comments, just going crazy. I had like 3,000, 4,000 comments on TikTok and nobody bought anything. Like I created this shirt, you know, that went along with like how the video was. Nobody purchased the shirt. So here I got all these eyes, but what the fuck is the point? You like the person with 1 million followers that launches a beauty line, but you know, nobody buys it the first day you launch. You got 1 million eyes, you got 1 million hands. If each one of those people spent $1, you would be a millionaire, but you sold nothing because it didn't translate. So it's like these lessons that we learn on the way to where it is that we're supposed to be and where we belong are the lessons that are working on us, that we didn't even know that we needed to have these lessons because we just wanted, I just want this. I just want 1 million followers. I just want to be adored. I just want your admiration. I want you to respect me. But like there's these things that are required of us to get there that when we get there, like we will never lose it. we will never lose. That's the difference between somebody blowing up, overnight sensation, that didn't cultivate the strength to be able to hang out there when they got there, and no matter what happens, I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna build from it. To the people who's like, damn, like I don't even know what the fuck, and then it's gone.
You talk about the gatekeeping, man. I've experienced that, and I've seen that, and that's a real thing, you know. That's a real thing. And I love Detroit. We had a conversation in the beginning of the podcast. I was like, man, if we wasn't in Detroit, we'd be this and that. And I had to get rid of that mindset. But it is such a deep thing. And when you was talking about plant culture, like, whoa, that's a up north thing. Like that's northern state, like factory type thing. Like to understand what you was just what. I don't know if to understand. I don't want to, you know, challenge somebody's perception, but that is a deep thing, man. I talk about that all the time. Like, think about in Flint. Like, I came up in Flint, and it's like, it's just like you said. You working in the factory. It's like, man, you made it. You know what I'm saying? And then it's like it brings a certain type of aura to the city. You know what I'm saying? It's just like I said, the women is different. The women is different. The men is different because the women working in the factory. You know what I'm saying? This is not Miami. This is like the women come off different. Their energy is different. It's like, this is not Miami at the beach taking pics. She just got done working an 8-hour shift. She is dangerous right now. You know what I'm saying? And it's just like, that plant culture is a deep thing. I wanted to talk about that one day on one of my episodes because I've been talking about that all the time. For you to say, I've never said plant culture in a phrase before, but that's real. Plant culture, like it's an up north thing, man. Like it changes the whole environment.
Where you come from, it like you know what it is. You got plant husbands, plant wives. You know, the crazy everybody getting blown just to hang in there. You know, it's just a lot. It's a lot that goes in there. It's a different world for real.
Some trauma.
Yeah.
Hey man, I wanted to ask you about the event that you got coming up, man. I wanted to ask you just give them a quick breakdown of that and where they can find the book, man.
Oh yeah, so the event was this past Saturday. It was called Happy New Hill. It went crazy. We did a live podcast recording of my podcast. You Feel That with BryceTheThird. Emotional wellness for the rest of us. And we did our first live podcast recording. My homegirl Amaria Grace of Self Care Sundays, she came out and she did a self care session and kind of like introduced people to like triggers and coping mechanisms and what trauma was and just like, you know, all these things where she had the worksheets and everything and everybody was like super engaged. It was crazy. And then I did like a little 10-minute keynote speech and then, you know, topped it off with a live performance of my music. And then we got about it here. I do have a book signing coming up soon. I don't have an exact date for it. The handbook, A Pocket Guide for Creating Your Desired Reality and Being a Good Human While You're at It, is available now. You can cop it on my website, BryceTheThird.com, or you can find it on Amazon. It's on Amazon as well. Yeah.
And is that event gonna be like a series? Are you gonna do some more of those?
So that was a one-off. Really and truly, like to be honest with you myself, I'm not interested in doing any one thing. I'm interested in doing what works. You know, so a lot of people will get into the event space and it's like, this is what I do. I do events. A lot of people get into the author space like, this is what I do. Like, I'm an author. Like, I want to get into what works. How can I transmute the energy that I've been called to share through a medium that allows for the greatest retention, the greatest reception. So the event was cool, and I plan on doing a couple of more events just so I can get used to that medium of interaction with people. But who knows, man? These may be some super exclusive events. So the next time you see me announce an event, you might want to slide to that because ain't no telling if BryceTheThird gonna do another event for real, you know? Yeah. But I'm always performing. I'm always going crazy. I love the practice of getting out there and doing the music. So I'm always out in the city. You might catch me out here.
Man, I appreciate you coming in the studio and guest hosting this episode with me, man. It was really off the cuff, man, so I really appreciate you just coming in and building with me, man. And hopefully we can do this more in the future. I want to get you on as an actual guest for another episode, me and Spank, and then we just chop it up because I want to dive a little bit deeper into, you know, the journey, man.
Yeah, no doubt. I meet Spank too, for sure. And I just want to shout out too for people who's been following this brother. I just reached out to him on Instagram. you know, and you're just talking about the gatekeepers and stuff like that. Like, and it's okay. And before we get out of here, just the Detroit mentality, right? I don't even want to say Detroit mentality because I don't want to blanket judge like our city, because our city is beautiful, our city is wonderful, our city is creative, our city is powerful, right? Like look at the stance that we're in rap culture right now. Everybody on Detroit shit for real. But there's this mentality I think that can come here when we see somebody else getting it. It's like, oh damn, I need that. Like, why I ain't getting that? I'm doing the same thing, or I'm doing something similar. And so like there's this innate survivor thing where it's like, oh, if you getting off, I can't get off. But in all actuality, what I've learned is that when I feel those ways, because I still feel, it's a practice, but I may innately feel those ways. But when I do the opposite of what those ways tell me to do, which is like, oh, be like brood and be all grumpy about the opportunities that you don't have. Like I practice the opposite. Like, how could I reach out? Like, how can I show up for him? How can I show up for them? How can I show up and tell them that I respect what they're doing and I really appreciate what they're doing? How can I consume their stuff? How can I put more people on it? How can I show up and prop up what they already got propped up? You know, and when we show up, when we send them DMs, I think I just sent you a random DM like, bro, like I really fuck with what you're doing. We should put our heads together. But if not, like I really appreciate what it is that you got going on. You're going crazy. And I just want to let you know that I see that, you know, and then eventually you reach back out. You know, but it's not always like that. You know, people don't always reach back out. And even when people don't reach back out, that says nothing about us and our process. In Detroit, like we got to prop each other up for real. Like we got to show up for each other. If you see somebody going crazy, show up to their book signing, show up to their show, show up to their event, like show up to where they selling the CMOS at, show up to where they selling their clothes at, like show up and buy something. Like buy something and support. And I promise you that shit gonna come back tenfold. That's been my whole experience.
Show up, show love, show your people, man. And I really appreciate you on this episode, man. Make sure y'all tune in next week for another episode of Breaking the Machine, man. This is BryceTheThird, AhmadThePoet, Breaking the Machine. You dig?
Yeah.